Good afternoon, Keith Tebow, FRCmedia. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a little while since we've checked in with the Fall River City Council, as they're going to be having their second meeting of the new year coming up tomorrow, as we're recording this in early February. And we're going to get an update now. Pleased to be joined by the Vice President of the City Council, City Councilor Pam Laliberte Lebeau. Councilor, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining me to catch us up to date on what's happening with City Council.
No problem. Home on a snow day today.
I know, and that's the time of year that we're having with the weather. I
It
want
is.
to talk a little bit about, it's been a while since we've spoken.
Yeah.
We spoke about a year ago, believe it or not. We were talking about some sort of collaboration and doing some programming for FRCmedia, and then COVID hit, and everything has changed. The council over the past year, when it got back to meeting, it started out doing Zoom meetings, and then the council was actually able to go back to council chambers with plexiglass and social distancing. And then when the surge hit, since late fall, early winter, the council has been back on remote Zoom meetings. What's the status of that? Numbers are improving in Fall River. Is there a talk of maybe getting back into council chambers soon?
There is. So I talked to council president a few weeks back, when they were starting to talk about the vaccine rollout, and he's hoping to be back at least in the atrium, maybe by the end of the last meeting in February. Certainly not for tomorrow's meeting, but maybe the last meeting in February. And the city, the director of buildings, Chris Gallagher, had put a lot of time and effort and funding, of course, into making all of Government Center safe for its employees, and that includes council chambers. So you are correct. He did put plexiglass in between each of the desks for the councilors and the clerks. And we had just the people that needed to be present at the meeting coming. It was close to the public for some time there. And then we had distancing between the seats in the audience for those members of City Hall that needed to come in front of the council if they had an item on the agenda, so that everybody was safe. So, and that is all still there, waiting to be used. So I'll be happy when we're back in council chambers.
Right. And so the next meeting, maybe later in February, would be in the atrium, and then with the hope of maybe getting back into chambers soon thereafter?
Yeah, so the talk was of the atrium, if we need more space. I guess it just could depend on the agenda, what's on it, how many people would need to attend, and what our numbers look like at that time.
Now, when you're in the atrium, will there be opportunity for the general public to attend? Do you know that yet?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The last that we had talked about being in the atrium before we went full remote again, it was going to be closed to the public. The governor had issued guidelines on what municipalities could do for their public meetings in regards to COVID, and still follow open meeting laws. So we've been following all of those to the best of our ability. It hasn't always been possible to have the public there. We'd like the public to be there. I think it's always effective when citizens come in and do citizens input. Now the clerks will read it, but I know that there's people that just generally like attending the meetings.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a few minutes, how things have been remote on Zoom. I know if people watch the meetings, and they're available, of course, on our sister station on FRG TV, and also online on Facebook. There's been some glitches, no doubt about it. How has it been for you and the rest of the councilors? You're still getting your work done, which is the important part, but has it been challenging, and how has it been so?
It's definitely been challenging. So I can speak for myself on this. Everyone's situation is different. So I have 3 kids and 2 dogs and 2 cats. And it seems as if every time I go on a meeting, a kid needs something or a dog starts barking. And to me, it's, you're trying to pay attention to everything that's going on the screen because it's important, but you have everything going on around you as well. So now I'll either go to my office and go on Zoom there, but then of course, there's other people in the office, walking by, waving, and it's distracting. When you're in council chambers, you're just concentrating on the people that are in front of you, and to the sides of you that are speaking. So that for me is difficult. The other thing that I really am not a fan of is if you've been on a Zoom meeting, every time somebody enters or exits the meeting, the screens move around. or if someone talks or coughs while someone else is speaking, like that screen will highlight because Zoom thinks that that's the speaker, and it will do that. It will go to the speaker, so that's a little distraction as well. And for me, I work best with no distractions, especially when we're
Yeah,
talking about numbers and budgets and
yeah.
things can get confusing, and you're trying to keep up with what motion's on the table and what amendment it is, and some of the responses that you really need to concentrate.
Yeah. So at least moving forward, hopefully you'll be back in person. Now,
Yeah,
in terms of the past year, there have been three new city councilors, and I
yeah,
had the opportunity to speak with them over the past year about their thoughts over their first
mhm,
year. It's definitely not the first year I'm sure they anticipated.
right,
But how has the work been going in terms of working with the other councilors? It appears that there's obviously going to be some disagreements on some issues, but
right.
from what I've seen from the meetings, it looks like everyone has been doing a good job, working hard, working together for the best outcome for the city.
Right. So, we talk about this a lot. Councillor Dion and I talk often, and I remind her, and she reminds me. There's 9 of us for a reason. We're not all going to have the same opinion, and and that's not what anyone wants. They want to hear from 9 different voices, and they might identify with one or several of those voices. And we certainly don't want all voices that are exactly the same as the administration. We're supposed to be the checks and balances. So even when we don't agree on issues, it's not personal. It's just our own opinion of how we feel things should be, and our votes all count the same.
You have had the opportunity, obviously, to work with a number of mayors since your time as a city councilor. How has it been working with Mayor Coogan in terms of the communication between his office and councils? I know he's told me in our interviews that he tries to hold meetings with small groups of councilors
Yes.
to keep the group up to date. How has that worked for you?
Yep, he does. He has his chief of staff reach out before a council meeting. They'll send us the items that he's going to be sending down to the agenda. We don't get our final agenda until Friday, so they'll send those down earlier in the week, and have briefings with each of the councilors at a time that's convenient for everybody. We do groups of 3, and so we don't break any laws, open meeting laws, and they'll explain to us, what they're sending down, and if we have questions, anything that can be talked out ahead of a meeting, or any information that they find that they don't have when we're in a briefing, they can bring to the meeting. So it leaves us with more answers than questions when it's in front of us on the floor.
And that would help, I'm sure, when you're deliberating an item that, if a mayor would just send down information without any explanation, that maybe make it a little more difficult, right?
Well, absolutely, and there are always things that are going to be last minute, and we expect that. We're used to that, but having the bulk of the information ahead, and being able to ask, at this point we still don't have a city administrator, so we're able to ask. In the briefings are usually the mayor, Mary Sahadi, and corporation counsel if needed, and whatever department head the agenda item might be on. Sorry, I'm in the sun here, and that they'll be able to answer our questions and get back to us on anything that they're, that might come up at the meeting that they didn't have in front of them.
Over the past year, with after the pandemic hit, there was a lot of concern over the city's budget. We were talking before we started recording here that it didn't take until the end of the year of 2020 to finalize the fiscal 21 budget, which the city's working under. You'll soon be starting the deliberations on fiscal year 2022.
Yeah.
It appears that things are working itself out, but there was a lot of uncertainties at the beginning. Let me just ask you, in terms of budget priorities, where do you see your thoughts in terms of where the city should be focusing throughout the rest of this fiscal year, and maybe as you look into fiscal year 2022, knowing that there's still a lot of unknowns out there?
Yeah, so there are a lot of unknowns. We're still, in our 21 budget. We just had, where are we, March? So we'll have the third quarter review. Actually, no, we just had the second quarter review. I take that back. We'll have the third quarter review, make sure everything is going along as it should be. We didn't pass that budget. We did, that's the first time we did a month to month. We did the month of July, then the month of August. And then it wasn't until September that we passed the full budget for fiscal year 21. So, I think we really need to see how that plays out and what difference COVID has had from what we anticipated on revenues and expenses for the city, especially with the school department, kids not being in school. There could be some, big numbers there, pluses and minuses. So really we haven't had our budget briefings. We haven't started our budget briefings for our priorities for the next fiscal year. My priority right now is making sure that this fiscal year that we're currently in is still going according to plan. I was in favor of that budget when we passed it in September. One of my issues, which was then addressed, was the lack of revenue. We weren't sure about revenues, and I couldn't support something where we had so many unknowns. We did take initiative at that point. I can give you one example for revenues is, and I know everyone hates when we talk about revenues when it comes to a taxpayer, but when we talk about traffic, if you go to any downtown of any other city, municipality, they have a much more up-to-date parking meter system. We still have the very old-fashioned, only takes coins system. You can't use a card. It's not a kiosk. It's not anything like that. Our meter fees and also our fines for not following them are much lower than other communities. So that was one of the items that we changed in terms of revenue. We've talked about, and actually, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it does make a big difference. One of the other pieces we talked about, which is small, and I know that people are, can be upset about this as well, is, the city picks up bulky items. We still do that. So as a resident, you can go to, can't go to City Hall anymore, but you can go to the garage on Lewiston Street and you can pay, I think it's 3 for $12. You can put out 3 bulky items for $12, which I think is huge. I mean, to me, I'll do that all day long than trying to figure out where I'm going to take a chair or a TV or something to that effect. And then mattresses, I think, were, I don't know, maybe $15 or $18. I'm not saying, I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure if that's right. But what I do know is that it was costing the city more to dispose of these items than we were charging. So to me, this makes 0 sense. We're performing a service that I think is valuable, because if you're trying to do it on your own, where are you taking that? Are you taking it to a dump somewhere? You're having someone come and pick it up that you're probably going to pay more to. You're able to go get a ticket, put it right out on the sidewalk on the day they tell you, and pick it up. So we did make adjustments to the cost to be able to do that as well. And when I say adjustments, I mean mattresses, we weren't even charging what it was costing us to get rid of that. Now we are. So those things might not, some people, they might seem like a big deal. To me, they don't. It's fair. It's more than fair. But those make a big difference when you see the amount that we do in the budget. So it was a variety of different things like that in terms of revenues that we wanted to see added to the budget and implemented, and we did implement those. They've gone through ordinance and through council. So to me, it's really making sure that the numbers are still going to come in for this budget.
Yeah. Are you hopeful that the city will be getting some federal assistance potentially from President Biden and the next stimulus bill? And how do you think that'll help the city?
So, we try to stand on our own 2 feet, and it doesn't always happen. We're very much aware and need of what the state and federally they help us with. Do I think, am I looking for that? I think it would be great. I would never count on anything. Nothing's ever certain. But in the state that we're in with the pandemic, I know that we're not alone in wanting additional funds, additional help.
Yeah. Let me ask you finally, moving forward, what do you hope will be some other priorities? I know obviously budget funding, keeping the city afloat is very important. Are there any other initiatives that you'd like to see potentially addressed over the coming year?
Yeah, so I feel like, same with the new counselors is the same with Mayor Coogan. Their first year has really just revolved around COVID. A lot of things that normally would be coming down to initiatives, they really haven't. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the Coogan administration is really going to do, what their priorities are, what their vision is for the city. So we can start looking at some of that because right now, we really haven't seen initiatives. And in this I can't say that I would expect to see, initiatives. We have the priorities that are what they are, and you have to do things and keep people safe. So I'm interested to see what a Coogan administration really looks like when it's up and running and not running under all of the restrictions of COVID.
Yeah, I know. I asked the mayor that same thing, and and everyone said, back a year ago, when you were all inaugurated for another term, and of course Mayor Coogan for his first term,
Mhm.
never anticipated what would have happened
No,
to have happened. So that actually throws everything up in the air. And I know the mayor as well is looking to get things to be a little more normal, and I think we will as time goes on. So,
I think so too.
Councilor Lebeau, I appreciate your time as always. We'll talk again soon, and stay well.
All right, thank you. You too.
All right. And thank you for joining us here on FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow. Have a great day.